En la presentación de Cowell, que me acompaña ahora mismo aquí a mi izquierda y que va a ser la ponente principal de esta primera parte de la mañana, quiero hacer referencia a un estudio que se ha llevado a cabo en Inglaterra, que es una revisión bibliográfica de todos los informes, trabajos, etcétera, que se han llevado a cabo en los últimos años sobre la contribución económica de las bibliotecas. Lo publicó el Arts Council de Inglaterra y es un trabajo que hizo una empresa consultora a la que se le encargó. Los resultados que ha encontrado las conclusiones que este trabajo quiere poner sobre la mesa es que se han llevado a cabo muchos estudios, pero de alguna manera ellos intentan dejar constancia de que muchos de los estudios no están bien enfocados y de la importancia que tiene tener esta información sobre impacto económico y social de las bibliotecas si queremos que las bibliotecas avancen, ¿no? Porque de alguna manera tenemos que demostrar bien lo que hacemos. Hay tres diferentes hipótesis a lo largo de la literatura de estos últimos años sobre cómo las bibliotecas públicas contribuyen a la economía. Como agentes económicos, por el impacto económico puro y duro que tienen, y ese modelo no ha estado demasiado desarrollado hasta este momento, como instituciones que facilitan la creación de valor económico en el área en la que se asientan y en la economía local, es el desarrollo económico basado en un lugar concreto. Hay pocos casos en este ámbito que varían mucho entre sí y que no aportan el análisis longitudinal necesario para hacerlos extrapolables a otros ámbitos. Y luego, como organizaciones que facilitan un amplio abanico de servicios que son valorados por usuarios y por no usuarios cuando se compara con el coste de la prestación de estos servicios. Es lo que se llama coste-beneficio en relación con el valor económico total. Están basados en los métodos de valoración contingente, que son difíciles y costosos de implementar y que siempre presentan algunas debilidades metodológicas. Uno de los problemas que tienen este tipo de estudios es que solo se mide el valor en el corto plazo y no analizan a futuro el valor de su existencia. No se analiza en muchos casos el no uso, porque cuesta dinero hacer un análisis del no uso, hacer encuestas a no usuarios, debido a las restricciones presupuestarias que todos tenemos y seguimos teniendo, hemos tenido y seguimos teniendo. Y luego hay una cierta debilidad estructural de las valoraciones económicas, lo que plantea hacer otro tipo de análisis basados en otras áreas y no solo las económicas, para entender cómo las bibliotecas públicas contribuyen económicamente a la sociedad. El valor económico es puntual, el impacto social es a medio o largo plazo y muchas veces es ahí donde fallamos, ¿no? En las previsiones que hacemos. No tenemos esa capacidad de visión a 15 a 20 años que deberíamos de tener. En este sentido, las 5 áreas de impacto que más se deben tener en consideración si hablamos de impacto social es en lo que se refiere a la educación de niños y adultos y desarrollo personal, a la educación de adultos, habilidades y empleabilidad, a salud y bienestar, a apoyo a la comunidad y cohesión social e inclusión digital. Hay suficiente evidencia de que las bibliotecas contribuyen de forma muy positiva a la mejora de los ciudadanos y las comunidades en muchas áreas, además del tradicional préstamo de libros. Lo que es evidente es que contribuyen, como he dicho, en el largo plazo, a la formación del capital humano, al mantenimiento del bienestar físico y mental y a la inclusión y cohesión social de las diferentes comunidades. La valoración estrictamente económica es a corto plazo y el impacto de esa valoración es solo una parte del auténtico valor de las bibliotecas. Una vez hecha esta introducción, que quería poner en común con vosotros porque el estudio acaba de salir, que he comentado, y habrá una reseña en blog de Bit, en este foro de la Escuela de Biblioteconomía de Barcelona, a finales de mes, bueno, en Navidad o así. Yo creo que es un estudio interesante. Paso a presentar a la ponente principal, Cowell, que es Trabaja en la Biblioteca del Estado de Queensland, en Australia, desde 2010, donde en este momento es directora de Acceso regional y de las Bibliotecas Públicas. Sus principales proyectos a lo largo de este tiempo han sido un proyecto estratégico denominado Visión 2017, Estrategia de Aprendizaje para las Bibliotecas Públicas. Un segundo en Visión del próximo Horizonte 2017 para las Bibliotecas Públicas de Queensland. Marco de alfabetización en información para las bibliotecas del Estado todos los días y de todas las formas. Y el beneficio de la biblioteca, el valor socioeconómico de las bibliotecas públicas de Queensland. Con anterioridad ha sido consultora con el grupo AEC, ayudando a desarrollar un plan estratégico, modelos de servicios bibliotecarios en las áreas de bibliotecas y servicios comunitarios. Interesante lo que voy a decir ahora, para los gobiernos locales y las bibliotecas del Estado. Une en su estudio lo que deben hacer los gobiernos locales y lo que deben hacer las bibliotecas, que están directamente implicadas con ellos. Jain tiene más de 25 años de experiencia en la gestión de bibliotecas públicas, a lo que añade su experiencia como presidenta de la Asociación de Bibliotecas Públicas de Queensland. Es una apasionada de las bibliotecas públicas como espacios de creación y conexión de las comunidades entre sí y a través de las tecnologías, que descubre todas las oportunidades de las que se pueden beneficiar las bibliotecas públicas gracias a los cambios digitales, sociales y económicos que nos rodean. Jain, cuando quieras.
Thank you for that wonderful welcome. And firstly, I must give you my only word in Spanish, hola. And secondly, I need to convey the apologies of my State Librarian, Jeanette Wright, who was to come to deliver this speech but was unable to leave Brisbane because you may know that the G20 is there this week and the CEOs of the Cultural Precinct were not allowed to be out of the country. I am not disappointed by that, even though Jeanette is very disappointed, because I got to go on my own Spanish adventure. So thank you very much for asking us to attend. I also would like to thank the local committee for organising the tours of two of your Badajoz public libraries, and here you will have to excuse my accent if I get it wrong, the Biblioteca Pública and the Biblioteca de Extremadura. Did I even do really well? And the staff who took the time from their busy days to answer my questions. I was really appreciative of those tours. So firstly, before I get started about the library dividend, I want to put it into some context. And the reason I want to do that is because information is just information, and I could give you all the details, but there might not be anything that you can do with it. And I want to make sure that what I pass on to you today is knowledge. And I was struck very much by a slide by a futurist in Australia last week that I went to, called Marcus Barber, and he put up a slide that says data with structure equals information. Information with context becomes knowledge, and knowledge with purpose becomes wisdom. And libraries exist to give knowledge wisdom and to give communities wisdom. So it really struck me, so I really want to make sure that I give you the context so that you understand the information. So firstly, some comparisons with Australia. Australia is 15 times bigger than Spain. So I just want you to know that distance is a real challenge in Australia. Somebody said to me, the translator said to me on Tuesday that Barcelona is a long way from here, and I just smiled because Spain fits into Queensland about twice. So there is more than double the population in Spain. So even though Australia is 15 times bigger, we have half the population in all of that space. So our population is quite dispersed. It costs twice as much to live in Australia than it does in Spain. So it really is much more costly. And this is where we're very much aligned. the changing nature of the way people connect to the internet is that both countries are trending very heavily towards mobile access. And I think this really needs to be a consideration for all of our libraries, as it is changing the way we make and enjoy art and culture. And it means that everything is on the go and on demand, and we really need to meet that challenge and that trend. Australia is happier than Spain. I don't see that this is true because everybody I've met has been very happy in Spain. But according to the World Happiness Report, Spain is getting sadder. So cheer up, okay? And in some sort of comparison also with libraries, Spain has a lot more libraries than Australia, and you have one per just over 9,000 population. So we have one per 15,000 population, but the difference with us is that almost 50%, 44% of the population are members of our libraries. So they are using them. I was cheered to hear that Badajoz is really going against the trends with much higher use in libraries. So you're doing something right here. And our visits per capita are 4.9 visits, so that's per year, so that's per head of population, not members, which is more than Spain. And our total loans, people still use libraries to borrow books in Australia, so it's 7.5 per capita. I do understand that a lot of your libraries have been unable to purchase new collections because of the economic crisis, and this may have some effect on those figures. So this is how Spain fits into Queensland. So Queensland is only one of the 7 states in Australia. So you can see that distance is really a challenge for us. And I'll just let you know the population dispersions. So on your right-hand side in the bottom corner, over half of the population of Queensland resides there in the southeast corner where the capital of Brisbane is, and that's where the State Library is. Over 70% of the Queensland region is only populated by around about 140,000 population. So there's a lot of space with very few people in it. And the internet and broadband and your mobile phone, in some places you just need to put it away. The landline drops out. So communication that we take for granted in populated cities in the bush in Queensland is a luxury. And this shows the population, the population dispersion shows where all of the public libraries are. So you can see in the bottom right-hand corner that there's 123 libraries there, and that shows that that's where all the population is. You can see up the top end, can I just say it takes 2.5 hours to get halfway up the coast of Queensland, so it's a long way. So to get to the very tip, which is Thursday Island on Cape York, it's another 2.5 hours, and it actually takes longer because you're on a much smaller plane. And we have libraries that are closer to Papua New Guinea on those islands than we do have to Australia. So this is the State Library of Queensland. I wanted to show you this and simply to talk to you about what the State Library is in relation to the rest of Queensland and what our relationship is with the 320 public library network. We're part of a cultural precinct, so we're nestled between the Queensland Art Gallery, the Gallery of Modern Art and the Queensland Museum. So it is a really convenient place to visit. We have 1.4 million visits a year, and we're not a lending library. We have just started lending, so this is a new thing for us, direct lending to the public. But normally we're a reference library. We're a place where you come to study, a place where you come to find out about the history of Queensland, and a place that you come to visit. We're not a place where you actually come to loan stuff. So the fact that we get 1.4 million visits is very heartening. We've been around since 1896. And we plan to be around for a lot longer. I'd like to actually take you on a visit because I've got a video. thought that was better to show you than to talk about it. So I hope that gave you some sense of what the State Library brings to Brisbane. I also wanted, you had a very brief view of the Edge, and Ingrid Parent gave this quote at the Singapore IFLA conference, and I just wanted to talk about it because it is a very new part of State Library. Opened in 2010, it is focused on a creative centre, so it's very much about bringing science, the arts, technology and ideas together, and bringing a space where people can come and make stuff and learn how to make stuff and be creative. The Edge won an international award for being new to libraries, but it really is an innovation, and it is where we believe in Queensland that libraries are moving towards an active space of creativity, not just a space where we consume content. So it is a change, and it's provided a model for maker spaces for the rest of Queensland. So this is our strategic plan, and I'm putting this up because it is about the why that was talked about yesterday, and we really need to put in why did we do the library dividend? Why do we do the research that we do? So the 4 key areas for our current strategic plan is about improving access to library services. Now, the one key thing about the State Library is that it must reach outside the 4 walls that it exists in. We have to reach the whole of Queensland and all of Queenslanders. Our motto is that the library is all yours. It's not ours, it's yours. And we will respond to you in a manner that works with you. We don't do to the community, we don't do it for you, but we work with you to enable you to do it for yourself. So it's very important to us that access to library services is available even if you're in the smallest town in the far west corner of Queensland when you have no access to the internet. Our other core component is co-creating Queensland's memory. So it's very important, and we're legislated to collect all of the history of Queensland. And, you know, sort of that is quite important to us and a major feature of our role. The other one is to extend the learning and creative experiences to the whole of Queensland. Again, it's not just about the programs that those 1.4 million visitors come in to utilise and engage and participate in on site, on the building. It is about reaching and extending those experiences to as Torres Strait Island if we can. And we also, of course, want to develop our own staff and our own people and our own capability to be able to deliver on those on those other 3. One of the core things that we also focus on is services for our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. There's a significant amount of barriers, and not only about where they live, the remoteness of where they live and their access to outside services, but it's also their access to jobs, income and their health. So this is one of the islands that we have an Indigenous Knowledge Centre on. There are 22 Indigenous Knowledge Centres across Queensland, and we really focus on these. Most are in the northern parts of Queensland, the far north, and on the islands off the tip of the coast. These are some of the people that we train. We're responsible for delivering on the Commonwealth aim of putting remote public internet into these places. So we've put in the servers. Yes, we had to find staff who could do this, but we put in the servers, we put in the Wi-Fi spots, we put in the computers, and we also deliver the digital literacy training to these communities. They do a lot of traditional dances. You don't normally find a lot of men with no shirts for those in the audience in these places, but they do a lot of traditional dance, and one of our key things is about maintaining their culture and really capturing their culture for future generations. We are now moving into accredited training to ensure that those that we do train have certificates and that help them in their jobs and for getting jobs. So we're currently delivering Certificate 2, which is a TAFE qualification in ICT, and Certificate 3s in Cultural and Information Studies. And this is going on a boat towards there. They're quite remote, but I just thought you'd enjoy them. This is all of the Indigenous Knowledge Centre coordinators. We bring them down to Cairns. I have an office in Cairns that I manage, 2.5 hours by plane away, and we deliver the training to them so that they can actually operate their local libraries. Again, we put in a lot of new technology, a lot of iPads. We loan the Wi-Fi through the iPads. The staff can do quite a lot. They're on Facebook. If you'd like them on Facebook, they're Indigenous Knowledge Centres. They have a blog. These coordinators write to the blog and communicate with each other through Skype. We do a lot around language as well, traditional languages. There are over 300 traditional languages in Queensland, and a lot of them are becoming extinct. So we like to keep quite a lot of it, and we have the elders teach the children. So again, that's some of the reasons why we deliver as we deliver. So one of the other core things that we deliver is to children, and you saw the corner. The corner is always packed. We get over 300,000 families to that a year, and that is specifically designed arts-based literacy activities for children under 8. And we develop all of the public library staff to deliver to that age group as well. The policy document that we've worked with public libraries, and this was a consultancy that we put together and had focus groups to develop this policy statement that Queensland Public Libraries can actually work from and embed into their plans. And the 4 key themes from the next horizon, so this is what we want public libraries to be in 2017, is we want them to be creative community spaces, so that they must have activity in them. They must be about promoting creativity. They must provide aspects for the community to come in and make. So much more active spaces than passive spaces. And yes, they would still have the quiet study spaces, but it is about being active. The second theme from this is, and it resonates with this conference, is about being a connector. So libraries facilitate all of those groups in the community to come together to improve their community, to come together to work out ways in which the priorities for the community can be enabled. It's not about the library's priorities, it's about getting the key leaders in the community together and to focus all our efforts. The third one is about being a technology trendsetter. When you looked at the map, you've got to realise that also retail, there is no Apple store in the West. Oftentimes there's not even a newsagent. In one place, the bread is delivered by plane every day, so there's not even a baker shop. So these places don't have the ability to see what the new technology and the new trends are. So it's a key thing for libraries to understand how to use this new technology, and it's a key component of what the State Library does. So we've got technology trendsetter kits with, say, a Raspberry Pi in them, a Fitbit, new technologies that come out over time, and we loan them out to public libraries so they can work with their community and show their community how to use them. Also how to buy them online, of course, because they can't get them locally, but it is about showing that community about the new trends. And the fourth one is that libraries should be an incubator of ideas. They are about generating change in their communities and meeting those needs. So the other key strategy that we've developed is also, and it's a key role of the State Library of Queensland in our relationship with public libraries, is that we do a lot of training, a lot of professional development for library staff across Queensland. We develop quite a lot of congresses like this one, forums, symposiums, where we try to have workshops with library staff about the new thinking in libraries, about where they can go with their libraries, with their skill, and give them particular skills to do it. So when we run a makerspace workshop, the library staff get to make stuff. It's about being active, it's about getting your hands dirty, it's about doing stuff while you're there and learning from that. And that is our Vision 2017 learning strategy. The three key areas that we'll be focusing on in the next few years is around leadership. One of the key aspects that Ian talked about yesterday was the need for library leadership. And if we don't invest in our staff to give them leadership capability, the capability to think differently, the capability to advocate on the part of their library in their political situations, the leadership to show the way for the other library staff to bring your libraries to the 21st century and to meet your community needs, then we have to invest in that staff and in the next generation, the next leaders, if that's going to happen. It doesn't just happen without investment. And so we're investing $100,000 this year, that's Australian dollars, in a leadership program, and we will be putting that out in 2015. The second area is the area of innovation. And we want libraries to try stuff and fail at it. If we don't try stuff, we will never know how to go forward. We will never know what works. So we will be devoting $100,000 again in competitive grants for public libraries to try new stuff. And we pilot with different libraries new stuff. It might not work, but it's about trying stuff. We're about to try with one regional library service the loaning of Wi-Fi to the home through iPads, and thinking about how this will work and will it help. This is an area that has a very low uptake of the internet. It's a seniors area, but also low high school scores. So it's about reaching those students who don't have internet at home, reaching those families who don't know how to use it, and seeing how that goes. And the third area is just the business of libraries. You know, there is a business of libraries. There's our everyday stuff that we need to do better and more efficiently, and most of that we've put online in our Connect Ed platform, which is a Moodle platform, and their self-paced learning modules for library staff to undertake that will aid them in their day-to-day business. So now to get to the library dividend. I know that's a long introduction, but I hope I've given you some context of why the State Library of Queensland would undertake this research on behalf of the public libraries of Queensland. And yes, there's a lot being done in other countries, but I don't know about your politicians, but my politicians and my local politicians are very parochial. They only care about theirs. If there's one done in America, who cares? That's America. It doesn't have anything to do with Queensland. If there's one done in Australia, they say, that's Australia, that's not Queensland. And so it really needed to be one that was done that mattered to Queensland, because distance is an issue. And the key areas for the library dividend were that it had to be real. One of the findings was that, and we could have used the higher figure, the findings was that the dollar figure, the value, went up to $4.10. So for every $100 invested in libraries, you realise $410 to the economy. But we didn't go with that figure because that doesn't mean anything to a small rural library like Cunnamulla. So Cunnamulla is probably half the size of Spain as a local government region with about 1,000 people in it. So it's a very small region with a lot of challenges. They don't realise the $4.10 for $1 investment. They just don't. So we had to make it real, which is why we went with the $2.30 or the $230 for every $100 invested. But the overall aims of this study was to expand the understanding of the value of public libraries to the communities they serve. We used 7 case study libraries that took on every different ones. We could have really made this research different by not focusing on the very smaller regions, but we didn't because we wanted to make it real. So there was the city, which was Brisbane City Council libraries, with 1.4 million people and 32 public libraries. But there was also Cunnamulla, which had the 1 library and only 1,000 people. So it does mean that the study was real for Queensland. We wanted to prove that public libraries contributed economic benefit to the community. So it wasn't just about the return on investment, but it was also about that we put something back, that the business of libraries impacts on the GDP of Queensland, that it actually puts something back into the economy. We also didn't want to just do the study. We wanted to provide library managers with the tools for assessing the value of their own library service because they have their own politicians and they had to come up with their own figure, not the average. And so we wanted to provide a tool that would enable them to calculate their own value. And we also wanted to equip public library managers with the advocacy materials that would enable them to advocate to their politicians. Done that? I obviously have a very hard thumb. Here, the methodology. So it's in the documents, if you do download the documents, and I'm afraid I've given the whole 2 technological reports away, but I have some of the summaries down here if you actually want the physical summaries of the library dividend. But the costs were the recurring capital and operating costs. That was part of the methodology. And then we looked at the economic benefits for the community, and it was determined in 3 ways. The financial savings, the travel costs, the cost that it took somebody to get to the library and the time that it took them to get to the library, and a contingency variation. I'm not an economist. I'm not going to explain the contingency variation to you, but they were the 3 methods. But we also wanted to measure that impact so that the economic impact was measured through the stimulation of regional economies and economic activity triggered by public libraries. We wanted to show that libraries actually put back into their communities. They were not just a cost to the government. So one of the key outcomes from it was that this is induced expenditure, and this isn't one of the ones that I've put in my paper because I thought you'd read my paper and you'd want to know some other things. But this is one that one library manager used to argue against reduced hours for her library service. What this is the amount of money that people spent in the local shops when they visited the library. So for every visit, the average spend by every visitor for the library, so it was just done by numbers, was $19.70. So every time somebody visited the library, they on average spent $19.70 Australian in the local shops. So if they were going to cut the library on one of the busiest days, they could actually calculate how much would be lost to the local businesses in a dollar value. Now the councillors, the local politicians, got that argument and they didn't close the library. So these are the other things that come out of this research that were really helpful to library managers. So while almost, sort of half of Queenslanders are public library customers, and there were more than 20 million library visits across Queensland libraries in 2010-2011. And can I tell you that is going up significantly every year. So while our loans are trending down, as they are in your country, our visits are trending very much up. So library users are changing the way that they use libraries. So they felt that libraries contributed to enjoyable and meaningful pastimes, lifelong learning and improving literacy. So the very first thing that we surveyed about 6,000 Queenslanders, both non-users and users, about the value of libraries and what value they placed on them. And the top one was being a safe and pleasant place to visit. So it was very much about coming in to the library and using the services. The second one was facilitating lifelong learning. The third one was improving literacy, and that included their digital literacy. And the fourth one was a surprise to all of us, though we did know it, was that they felt that having a library in their community encouraged responsible social behaviour in the community. So we made the community better. And that ensuring access to the internet for all, that ability to have equal access to all the community for things that they may not have in their home. So these were all key things that came out of the survey. And if you look at them, not one thing was, I want to borrow a book. That was not the top thought from the survey users. But in actual fact, that's what they did. The activity that they did in a library was 96% of people borrowed something. But they didn't borrow a book. Libraries focus on the transaction and not the outcome. What they thought they were coming in to do was to help with their hobby, to learn something, to do something new, to improve their job prospects, but the activity and the transaction was borrowing something. And I think we have to stop focusing on the transaction and focus on the outcome of what people use us for. The other key thing was library usage. They spent about, on average, over 30 minutes in the library. And over 30% of them came weekly. So they were quite regular users, a significant proportion of our customers. So that was really useful information as well for library managers. But here are some of the quotes. I love the mix of people it attracts, all ages from all walks of life. I love that it promotes community. These are some of the core aspects that Tony was talking about yesterday, that it's about accepting all difference and providing access to different things. And I think this was the social value and the social benefit that we got out of the research that was also able to be used by library managers to advocate. It's the outcome of the libraries that was useful. Again, it's a place where all people can go and have access to resources and be treated the same. This is a value of libraries, and it's something that our users, and getting it in our users' words instead of our users in our words, is much more useful for advocating to politicians. This is another one. We moved from overseas with very little, and the library was fantastic, both for resources and helping us integrate into the community. One of the core aspects that came out of the survey research was that people felt that the library helped them belong. In Australia, I don't know if it's the same in Spain, but in Australia we have people moving for jobs all the time. So they're going into new communities. It's not just about coming from overseas or coming as a refugee. It is about that I am new to the community because I now have a job here and I'm 2.5 hours away from where I grew up. I might be a whole state away from where I grew up. So this is the benefit of libraries, is about bringing that sense of belonging to the community. And your politicians worry about that. They worry about having a cohesive community who's working together to make the community better. And libraries, from this research, can be proved to do it. It's not just about us saying it. This is about the community saying it. This is about the people who use libraries saying it. So it's important to get the customer's view. So the purpose of the library visit was significantly about recreation. It's helping me in my leisure time. It's helping me with my hobby. It's helping me with reading. It's helping me in my recreation. There was half who said study and education, so there was only 50% who used their public libraries, and a significantly less for research. But one of the key components was that for an investment of, it's $41.39 per person per annum is invested in public libraries, well, in 2010, 2011, it has gone up, gives Queenslanders access to free information and entertainment. It connects people through library computers, wireless hotspots to their friends and family, potential employers, the government, the banks and other online services. So our government is pushing a whole lot of government services online. Not everyone knows how to use it, not everyone has access to online, and the libraries provide that. It provides a safe and welcoming community space and is a critical entry point for people to what's happening around them, to make sense of their world. And while 96% in 2010 and 11 was to borrow a book, given the development in the streaming media, you've just launched a digital online platform for ebooks. Libraries in Australia have had streaming ebooks, e-audio, e-music, e-magazines for some time. So given that, I'm not sure that 96% of users today would be borrowing a book, but they may be borrowing it from home online. So again, it was about that a library helped me with my meaningful pastimes. It provided that sense. It was, again, proof of what Tony was talking about yesterday, that it gives sense to my world. But in terms of the advocacy, we did develop the tools and the workshops. The reason we provide a summary document and a one-pager key findings document, I don't know about your politicians, but they're not going to read in Australia a 290-page report. So we wanted a document that had a lot of white space, a few words that politicians would actually read, and that's why we provided the summary document and the one-page key findings. Every library manager got a selection enough for their local politicians. And we had a workshop that gave them those advocacy tools and advocacy skills to talk to their local councillors and present to their council meetings. They got an advocacy action planning workbook. So when we did the workshop, we actually made them think about what would be the actions that they would do when they went back to their library that would start this advocacy along. It wasn't, we got a commitment from them that what would be the first thing they would do. How would they actually go about that advocacy? They got a PowerPoint presentation template, a spreadsheet where they could calculate their own, with all of the formulas in it, where they could calculate their own value and return on investment. And all of that is available online, and you can click on the links in my paper and get all of that documentation. So for every, and I'll put this in euros because I did do the calculation, it might be different today, but when I did the paper, it was for every 69 euros invested in Queensland, 159 euros is returned, and that was on average. So I think we could prove that we were better than gold, than an investment in gold at the time, and we could put it in investment terms. But I think that the findings from the non-user survey, and Tony said we have to ask the non-users as well, was just as valuable. Because let me tell you, they value libraries and their role in the community, even if they say they don't have time to use them. And it was very high, and that's in there too. So in terms of what do we do about it now, we're looking at... We had a public launch, we had the Minister launch it, it was distributed widely, and councils and library managers have been using it. So just 4 ways that it has been used. A regional council in rural western southwest Queensland has used the report to support its future facilities plan, and after 10 years without this, they now are building a new central library. Another rural library service has used the report to support its business case for a future library building redevelopment and has received funding for a feasibility study, where for the last 10 years the council has refused to even consider it. And I talked about another library who used it to stop the closing of hours, and also it's been used to formulate the strategic planning documents for other councils. So it was also scaled up to a national level, and at a national level, because the State Library of Victoria also did this study using the same methodology, we were able to do that, and I hope this will click. And I'll show you the advertisement that was done by our Australian Library Information Association, who scaled this research up and did it for the whole of Australia. Oops. It won't click.
We wanted to find out how much Australian public libraries contribute to society. So early in 2013, the Australian Library and Information Association, on behalf of a consortium of state and territory libraries, asked SGS Economics to work out the benefits of libraries to communities and to the economy. SGS measured this in several ways. They looked at how much people save by using libraries, how much it costs people to visit libraries, and how much people would be willing to pay for library services if they weren't already covered by their council rates. Surveys of library users and non-users showed that residents valued library services, borrowing books and other items, library programs, including children's story times, computer training, and other informal courses. People liked the sense of space created by their local library and the fact that it was a useful civic space. They also liked the fact that borrowing and sharing things is environmentally friendly. There are many benefits associated with libraries, not least the opportunity to connect with other people. SGS found that the activity around library buildings and services helped support nearly 31,000 jobs, and that libraries spend more than $3 billion on products and services. Taking all this into account, SGS estimated that there is a net annual benefit of nearly $2 billion generated by libraries. That means that for every $1 invested in public libraries, society receives a return of $2.90. And the more that is invested, the greater the return. We wanted to find out how much Australian public libraries contribute to society. So early in 2013, the Australian Library and Information Association,
so that's available now for all libraries to use across Australia. So what did we learn? We learned that traditional method of measurement does not capture value, so you have to do something different. Traditionally, we measure how many loans we have, how many visits we have, and how much we cost. It doesn't work. Politicians are not listening. And we have to have another message, as Ian talked about yesterday. We have to actually have evidence of our value. The increased accountability that we are subjected to, and we have all suffered under the economic crisis, though Australia not as much as the rest of the world, but we are under increased accountability and we must tell our story in a different way. It's not just about from our point of view. We have to start telling the story from those who use us point of view. And our ability to demonstrate our value is vital for continued funding. And all of us has been saying that at this Congress. So the future, we're going to build on this data. and really look at it in a different way. A recent Australian research report, again from the State Library of Victoria, looked at the comprehensive data on the diversity of cultural activities and benefits provided by public libraries in Victoria. And the report posits that libraries are playing a key role in serving the instrumental rather than intrinsic benefits to communities of cultural and creativity participation, such as brain health, new career paths or social support. So how do we prove that in Queensland? Again, I can't give a Victorian report. My Queensland politicians won't believe it. So we've partnered with the Queensland University of Technology for a research project to understand the impact of Queensland public libraries as creative places. It's important that this is not value. We've got the value, we're now looking at the impact. What would it mean if libraries were not in the community? What is the impact? What change do we make in the community? And what statements do we need to make? And yes, they might be ambitious statements, but we need to measure that impact. So the objectives of this project is to investigate that impact of creative spaces in public libraries, provide clear evidence of this impact, there is an impact, we do make a difference, and articulate the opportunities to further embed creative spaces in public libraries or community spaces. This is not just about passive enjoyment, it's about active creativity and culture. So we'll be looking at a contextual review of what's happening across the library industry, a selection of case studies of Queensland libraries to trial the community impact framework that we come up with and really apply that to the case studies and get that through. So we'll be looking at those surveys with a new lens. We'll be looking at that impact. If you didn't have a library, would you have an active community in culture, in creativity, in actually a cohesive community? So, in conclusion, the State Library has a role to do this research because individual libraries cannot do it on their own. It's important that we scale up, and it's important that we give the public library managers individually across the state the key message that they can deliver to their local politicians about why they matter and why they should continue to be funded and why they are essential. But it also allows them to structure their strategic plan to really outline what their purpose is in their community. It's not about lending the book. It is about changing their lives, and how we actually do that, we must tell that story and it must be measured. So we're going to give it a go. So in a year we should have the findings and I'll let you know what we find. Thank you. My second Spanish word, gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, Jane. Ha sido francamente interesante y además con una disciplina británica. Se ha ajustado al tiempo previsto, aunque hemos empezado un poquito más tarde. La dinámica que vamos a seguir ahora es, si os parece, las preguntas que seguro que tenéis para Jane, las vamos a dejar al final de la mesa redonda y así cerramos un poquito el círculo. De forma que montamos ahora la mesa redonda con los otros dos ponentes y hablarán cada uno de ellos en torno a 10-15 minutos y espero que nos quede como media hora para debate posterior que incluirá también todo lo relativo a esta excelente conferencia que nos ha proporcionado Jane. Gracias.